Hello, good morning, sir. Sir, shall we start our program?
Dr. Ajit, you can start, but please light your room. I think the light is less in your room.
Okay, just a minute, sir.
Hmm.
Now it's okay, sir.
Yeah, it's okay now. It's much better.
Okay.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Namaskar, good morning. Welcome to webinar on coastal environment development and disaster risk reduction and resilience, jointly organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs and Port Blair campus of Pondicherry University. Myself, Dr. Harjeet Kaur, YP NIDM, and I will be the moderator of today's webinar. Today's webinar implementing Prime Minister 10-point agenda, point number 5, 6 and 9, where Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji urged to leverage on technology to enhance the efficiency of disaster risk management efforts, develop a network of university to work on disaster related issues and make use of every opportunity to learn from disaster and to achieve. As we know that the coasts are one of the highly dynamic parts of the Earth's surfaces, about half of the world population lives within 200 kilometers of coastal lines. Coastal areas have been attractive human settlements, and these areas provided abundant marine resources, fertile agricultural land, and possibility for trade and transport. Coastal area contain world's most sensitive ecosystem like mangroves, wetland, coral reefs, dunes, and beaches. The various natural hazards pertaining to coastal zones are meteorological disasters like cyclone, wind damage, storm surge, heat and cold waves, heavy rainfall, hydrological disasters, drought, urban floods, and geological disasters, earthquake, tsunami, and anthropogenic disasters like climate change, sea level rise, oil spill. Hydrometeorological conditions also can be a factor in other hazards such as landslide, wildland fires, epidemics, and in transport and dispersal of toxic substances. The 7,500 kilometer long coastal line of India is threatened by many natural hazards, resulting in the loss of life and property. About 40% of the total population of India lives within 100 kilometers of coastal line. Data from a period of 1980s to 2000 shows that on an average annually 370 million people are exposed to cyclone in India. Furthermore, India's coastal line has already been affected by sea level rise that has been recorded at a rate of 2.5 mm per year since the 1950s. The east coast of India is more affected by the seasonal tropical cyclones in southwestern monsoon as well as in the return northeast monsoon as compared to west coast. There are 13 coastal states encompassing 84 coastal districts which are affected by cyclones. Amongst them, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Pondicherry on the east coast, and Gujarat state on the west coast are more vulnerable to cyclone disaster as compared to the other coastal states and UT. The major multi-hazards that threaten the eastern coast are tropical cyclone, sea level rise, floods, coastal erosion, and storm surges. NIDM is an institute that lays emphasis on multi-stakeholder, interdisciplinary, cross-sectoral approaches for an efficient, proactive continuum disaster risk management based on participatory, integrated, multi-risk management concept. It aims towards a disaster-free, resilient India. NIDM has a specialized center on the coastal disaster risk reduction and resilience in geometeorological risk management division in the institute. The center undertakes various training, research, documentation and workshop, conference, seminar on the coastal hazard. I hope that various participants involved in this webinar will benefit immensely in improving the preparedness, mitigation and emergency response, not only in the coastal district of the country, but also provide the necessary support for consolidating the capacity building, training, education, research and development by professionals in leading national institutes in the country. Now I would request Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division, NIDM, for his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Harjeet. Good morning to all the participants and the speakers. I am very happy that today we are organizing a special webinar on a particular geographical area, the coastal territories of our country. As pointed out by Dr. Harjeet, we have more than 7,500 kilometers long coastal belt, and this is prone to different kinds of hazards which have been affecting them since times immemorial because of their geographical position, geodynamic conditions, and anthropogenic activities. It's a mix of all the factors which actually brings out adverse consequences. In disaster management, we say that we have to focus on the role of human beings as factors for controlling and causing these hazards turning into disasters. So we will try to actually discuss with all of you through our young professionals and consultants who have been working on specific topics. As pointed out by Dr. Harjeet, she herself is actually facilitating and coordinating activities for our specialized center on coastal disaster risk reduction and resilience. Several other programs have also been organized. We have been conducting online trainings as well as face-to-face trainings on coastal disaster risk reduction and resilience. Today, our team will be discussing specific types of disasters with respect to their own specialized centers. The Geometeorological Risk Management Division has 4 specialized centers at present. One is on early warning and communication. The second is on hill area development. Even in the coastal area, there are several hills, particularly the western and the eastern Ghats, which have been suffering from various kind of hill related disasters as well. The third is on flood monitoring cell. That is, we are focusing on the various flood events which have taken place in the recent times in different parts of the country. So all these studies which have been carried out by NIDM will be shared with our participants, and we would like to get their feedback on our works. And also, I think through the discussions during this webinar, we'll get our way forward for the issues, challenges, and the opportunities for disaster risk reduction and resilience in the coastal areas. Our aim is to help our country become disaster free or with reduced risks and resilient communities. We work in all directions, right from the government level, functionaries, line departments, non-governmental departments, private sector, public sector, as well as the volunteers. Community is ultimate target, and the grassroots level approach, all-inclusive approach and ecosystem-based approach. As she said, mangroves have been in existence for long times along the coasts. They have actually served as protection shields for the coastal communities. However, recently lot of these no cutting of the trees has taken place, which actually exposed the coastal communities to the risk from the tsunami, coastal flood, cyclones, and similar disasters. So we have to look into this. Where are we going wrong? What is the right directions? And what are the lessons that we have learned from the recent disasters? I would like to inform you in brief that we have been able to achieve a good success in terms of reduction in casualties through our early warning and communication systems, which have saved a number of lives. If you look into the past events from Andhra and Odisha, where thousands of people, more than 10,000 people were killed in 1970 in Andhra, and 1999 on 29th October there were more than 10,000 people in Odisha super cyclone. But in the recent times, we have reduced the numbers to less than 2 digits. So this is the success of our disaster management efforts. However, we have to go for zero casualty as is the mission in our national guidelines and also in our national policy on disaster management. So with these brief background and words, I would say all the best to all the speakers and also to all the participants who have joined with us. I'm very happy to see that more than 500 participants have already joined in this program. So I would request to kindly be active and put up your questions, and I would request our speakers also to answer the questions, and let it be a two-way communication. Communication is never complete until unless it is two-way. So the speaker speaks, but what the recipient understands has to be on the same tune, same frequency, and on the same considerations, understanding. So until unless it matches with the sender and the recipient with the same concept and understanding, it will not succeed. So let's start this webinar with these words. I wish all the best to the speakers and to all the participants for today's webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for encouraging and motivating our participants. Before starting our technical session, I would request all the participants to raise your question in Q&A window. Now we will quickly start our technical session. In 2016, Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi outlines 10-point agenda for disaster risk reduction, where agenda number 9 emphasized on make use of every opportunity to learn from disaster and to achieve. To enlighten more in this topic, we have with us Mr. Pranav Dhawan, consultant, flood monitoring cell, NIDM. He is postgraduate in hydrology, and prior to joining NIDM, he has worked with some of the prestigious organizations such as UNDP, THI, India Water and Environment, New Delhi, and India Smart Water Management and Urban Climate Change Resilience in Tamil Nadu, who ADB funded, and so on. Now, over to you, sir. Pranav, sir?
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Good.
Perfect. I just have to, if you can just give me the rights to share the presentation. Is it visible? Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Perfect. A very good morning to each and every single participant out there. So I am Pranav Dhawan, and I'm working as a consultant with the National Institute of Disaster Management. And I'll be just discussing about the Kerala floods. And let me just start off with the presentation. So I'll be starting off with the overview of the Kerala, of the state of Kerala, and the flooding of 2018, how it actually impacted in the different societies of Kerala, what were the predictions that were issued by the IMD, the number of landslides which occurred in the entire state. Following that, I will be discussing about what went wrong in this during this entire flooding. And then we had the damage and loss assessment studies, which were done by different organizations. And one thing that I will be discussing in detail would be the post-disaster need assessment, that is the PDNA. And then finally would be the takeaways from the flood. So Kerala terrain is a linear one with elevations varying from -2 meters to 1500 meters, as can be depicted from the image also, which is the elevation taken from the Bhuvan website. And it is in a stretch of about 80 to 100 kilometers across the state. The Western Ghats terrain has steep slopes, while the rest of the terrain is generally plain. The time of concentration, or the time required to travel the water from farthest point of the project catchment to the project catchment outlet of most of the reservoirs in the region, is about 2 to 3 hours only, which is a very less time in order to understand the flooding. If by chance there is an early warning, so it only takes 2 or 3 hours for the flood to actually reach that point. Then Kerala state has an average annual precipitation of about 3,000 millimeters. The rainfall in the state is controlled by the southwest and the northeast monsoon, and about 90% of the rainfall occurs during these 6 months of monsoon only. The high intensity storms prevailing during the monsoon months result in heavy discharges in all the rivers. The continuous and heavy precipitation that occurs in the steep and the undulating terrain find its way through the main rivers through innumerable streams and watercourses. You can see the LULC, that is the land use and the land change pattern of Kerala, which has shifted from 2012, 11-12, and from 15-16. So you can see that we have a lot of urbanization. The red parts show the urban areas which have been developed. And you can also see that some parts, the green parts, which are the forest area, have been also converted into urban areas, or the trees have been felled into agricultural land. You can see the same thing over here, somewhere over here as well. So you can see that there have been a little bit changes. Same goes for here as well. So the forest lands have been cleared off for agricultural practices. Kerala experienced an abnormally high rainfall from the 1st of June 2018 to the 19th of August 2018. This resulted in severe flooding in 13 out of the 14 districts in the state. As per the IMD data, Kerala received around more than 2,000 millimeters of rainfall during 1st June till the 19th of August, against a normal rainfall which was predicted, which is 1,650 millimeters, which was about 42% above the normal. The gates for about 35 dams were opened due to extremely large inflow of the water in the reservoir. And as per the study done by CWC, this event was actually comparable to a 100-year event also. So this is the results from the study of CWC. So you have a 2-year return period, and then the table depicts the inundation area based upon the water depth and the risk areas. So as you can see that the 100-year event, the high risk area is around 551 square kilometers, and the total would be 1,700 square kilometers. Whereas the 2018 floods, the entire area which was flooded, the inundated, was more than 1,800 square kilometers. And also in the graph, you can see that how a normal flood as well as different flood area events, how they are depicted with respect to the inundation area, and how was the representation of the 2018 flood. Moving on, this was the impact which of the flood between the 22nd May till the 29th of August. So around 1259 out of 1664 villages are spread across its 14 districts were affected. More than 5.4 million people were affected, and around 1.4 million were displaced. The total count from the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority for the casualties was 433 lives. Apart from that, 500 bridges and culverts were damaged. More than 7.5 lakhs poultry and domestic animals died in this entire flooding event. and 15,000 hectares of fish farm was damaged, and more than 500 schools and 200 primary health centers were affected from this flooding event. So this was the prediction that was done by the IMD. So on the first long-range forecast, which was issued on the 16th of April 2018, predicted that the monsoon seasonal rainfall will be around 97% of the long period average, which is the 50-year average from 1950 average, and with a model error of plus minus 5%. The second stage, stage was also issued by IMD, which stated that which was predicted that 95% of monsoon rainfall will be over the southern peninsula with a model error of plus minus 8%. So this can be noted that the predicted value of the total rainfall for the southwest monsoon season was only 95% as against the 97% predicted value in the first stage forecast. Also, the prediction uncertainty band increased from 5% to 8% in the second stage. The probability of excess rainfall and above normal rainfall was also predicted to be as low as 3% and excess of 13% respectively. Hence, given the large uncertainty in the predictions, the thumb rule to practice was to conserve water. As per the IMD prediction, Kerala received more than 2,346 millimeters of rainfall. And during the months of June, July, and August, 1st to 19th of August, the departure of rainfall was 15%, then 18%, and then we have 164% than the normal rainfall. This was above the normal. So you can see that there was a huge difference between the normal as well as the actual rainfall. Now we have the departure maps, which was during this entire flooding event. So you can see that this was for the month of June, then we have July and then August. So you can see how the rainfall was increasing month by month. And in the month of August, most of the areas were already with heavy rainfall. So this was the prediction, the forecast which was given by the IMD. So the peak spell of the rains that created the extreme rainfall, extreme floods in Kerala occurred between the 8th to the 17th of August 2018. The comparison of rainfall is depicted in front of you. So the table clearly indicates that Kerala received rainfall which was completely unprecedented. It may be seen that while in the 8th of August, so the first table is actually the forecast, whereas the second table is the actual realized rainfall between 8th August till the 22nd of August. So as on the 8th of August, you can see that most of them was only the orange bulletin was flood bulletin was issued. The orange bulletin states that the rainfall would be between 64 to 115 mm, and it would be heavy to very heavy rainfall at isolated places. Whereas the red bulletin is heavy to very high rainfall at few places, which is again more than 115 millimeters of rainfall. So as you can see on the 8th of August, most of the areas were issued only orange bulletin, whereas in reality, two districts, which is Idukki and Wayanad, we had an excess of rainfall, and the orange bulletin was issued. On the 9th of August, as you can see that most of them, there was no significant alert required, and whereas the actual rainfall, we had red bulletins where we had heavy to very heavy rainfall in the 7 districts of the state. Similarly, on the 10th and the 11th and 12th of August, red bulletin was issued only for 5 to 8 districts. However, the rainfall, which was light to light, which is 10th, 11th, and 12th, actually this was very high, whereas the actual was very less. On the next more crucial day, 15th of August, the prediction was mostly for yellow in the state, with 4 districts to be receiving red and 1 receiving orange. However, the entire state received extremely heavy rainfall. On the 16th of August, 7 districts were predicted to be receiving orange and 7 to be receiving red. The actual rainfall received was yellow in 3 and 1 orange, and 9 of them were red. Thus, the actual rainfall received in the state exceeded predicted rainfall in most crucial days, in which the state was flooded also. Moving on. In the Kerala, as per the Kerala State Disaster Management Plan, it states that 14.4% of the state is prone, and the Revenue Department reported 47 landslides between the 29th of May to the 31st of July, and 331 landslides were reported between 1st August to 30th August. There were also studies which stated that there were more than 5,000 landslides around around the entire state. However, we are just, because these are the government numbers, so we are definitely taking the numbers which are given by the department only. So what went wrong actually? So as per the reports by CWC, there were around 35 dams across the states which were open to release the flood runoff. All five overflow gates of the Idukki Dam were open for the first time in 26 years, which was a crucial condition for them as well. Several reservoirs were almost filled to the capacity by the end of July due to continuous rainfall from 1st of June. And the first onset of flooding only occurred during the end of the month of July. Due to such high rainfall in the previous months of June as well as July, there was absence of appreciable storage in the reservoir upstream, along with shrinkage of carrying capacity of lakes, rivers, and porous land. The Bureau of Indian Standards (BIS) prescribes that the requirement of 256 rain gauges in the state to be deployed by the nodal agency for the purpose in the country. The state is in receipt of only 68 rain gauges, for which data is received every 24 hours, which definitely impeded the ability of the state to concurrently monitor the spatial distribution and the intensity of rainfall. Also, according to the National Remote Sensing Center and the satellite imageries issued by them, between the 16th of July till the 28th of August, around more than 65,000 hectares of land was inundated. Many areas were underwater for more than 2 weeks. Few areas such as Kutanad, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, um, backwater belt of the Alappuzha was underwater since July 2018 as the polder walls had breached. So apart from that, due to the the limited capacity of the lake and the spillways, this led to heavy rainfall, heavy flooding areas in the downstream areas as well. Apart from that, there was also high tides between the 11th to the 15th of August, which led to the outflow of flood waters into the sea, which was heavily impeded. So these were the three damage and loss assessments which were done by different authorities. So one was done by the World Bank, which was the Joint Rapid Disaster Need Assessment. The second one was the Post Disaster Need Assessment, which is the PDNA, which was led by the UN team. And then we also had the memorandums issued by the government departments as per the Government of India norms. So I'll be discussing a few things from the PDNA, which was led by the UN. So, which was also some of the positive points which came out of this entire flooding. So, the major difference between the memorandum, which was issued by the Government of India and the Government of Kerala, and the PDNA, Post Disaster Need Assessment. So, the memorandum only was concerned with the government assets and the services. However, in PDNA, this also included private properties as well. The memorandum was only for damage calculation. However, the PDNA was damage and loss calculation. And the PDNA focused more on the recovery and the rebuilding of the state. However, the memorandum was only for the relief of the state and the people within it. And there were different sectors in the PDNA which was given importance, such as the social sector. This was also included. However, in memorandum, it was only the productive sectors which were given importance. The PDNA, these were the different sectors which were taken into consideration while doing this entire post-disaster need assessment, which sectors and the subsectors, how much money is required, what is the requirement for each and every single sector. So in the social sector, suppose we have housing, then we have health, we have education. In the productive, we have agricultural, fisheries, livestock. Then we have different sectors which are already present in front of you. So there were three important takeaways that I would like to discuss with you in this presentation. So the first one was the Harita Kerala mission, which was the Green Kerala mission. So this was an umbrella mission integrating the components of waste management, organic farming, and water resources management. So household level segregation and safe disposal of organic waste through feasible options like composting, biogas, arrangements for institutional waste disposal, reuse, recycling, and safe disposable a disposal of non-biodegradable and electronics waste were given priority. This was all these three were the institutional framework or the policy framework which was given after the floods had already happened and after understanding the requirements and how to make Kerala flood resilient. The second in the Harita Kerala mission was the rejuvenation of tanks, ponds, streams, and rivers was the focus in the water resources sector. And the last, the thrust in promoting organic agriculture will be to produce safe to eat vegetables and fruits to make the state self sufficient within the next 5 years. The second thing, which was this was the first in the state of Kerala, which was the Meenangadi. This was the first carbon neutral Gram Panchayat, which was developed in Kerala. So this is nestled in the hills of Western Ghats in Wayanad district of Kerala. And in order to make it the first carbon neutral Gram Panchayat, uh, it was studied how to reduce the carbon emissions in the atmosphere by cancelling out the carbon emissions by an equal amount of sequestration. This pilot was launched in June 2016. Um, Before launching this pilot program, the Gram Panchayat conducted this entire detailed household survey to measure the amount of carbon emissions in the air, water, soil due to houses, vehicles, agriculture, and other sources. So very important and a very good thing which was understood during this entire carbon neutral Gram Panchayat was that the major the after the research it led to understanding that the major source of emission was the vehicles which were running on the national highway that cuts through the village. So a forest survey was conducted to assess the vegetation cover, and the audit also showed that there was an excess carbon equivalent of 14,500 tons of carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane, which had to be balanced by reducing the carbon emissions and adopting measures for climate change. And as per the study done by, I think so, this was IPCC, International Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, the Western Ghat is expected to rise. The minimum average temperature of the Western Ghats was expected to rise by 2 degrees to 4.5 degrees by 2050 if nothing is done to address it. And this increase in the temperature would directly be proportional to a decline in the rice production and devastation of the heat sensitive crops of coffee, tea, cardamom, and pepper. A number of initiatives were also taken within this Gram Panchayat, which included um, around plantation of trees of around 1,50,000 square meters of land, and with more than 4.5 lakhs coffee plants, 32,000 cardamom trees, and organic cultivation was also promoted, and villages were given free organic vegetables, seeds, and buds. The last thing which I would just like to discuss right now would be the Nava Kerala. This was again a policy which was a new policy to build a new Kerala, and in which we had they had four pillars. The first one was the integrated water resources management, creating room for the river and living with water. So the IWRM emphasizes cross disciplinary coordination of water, land, and related resources in a river basin. River basin management with room for the river approaches emphasizes ecological conservation and restoration. This approach aims to lower flood levels by increasing the wet areas of the rivers and giving them more room. And this also brings together all the stakeholders to develop and formulate an agreed upon set of policies and strategies to achieve a balanced approach to land, water, and natural resource management. The second pillar, which was the eco-sensitive and risk-informed land use and settlements approach, the floods and landslides caused considerable damage to the housing. However, the while the floods damage to houses was largely caused by the impact of swelling waters in different places, damage to the houses in hilly terrain was largely caused by faulty locations on unstable mountain slopes. So, in order to for the Nava Keralam under this policy, the reconstruction of all buildings, it is important to keep in mind that the reconstruction is not only in the right location, which is away from the floodplains and slopes, of course, but also uses disaster resilient construction techniques. Um, in line with the government vision of this Nava Keralam, the reconstruction process emphasizes an eco-sensitive approach using local materials and constructions technologies that are locally appropriate, fulfilling and appropriate as fulfilling the aspirations of the public. The third pillar, which is the inclusive and the people-centered approach, which also means leaving no one behind. So disasters disasters expose existing social inequalities and thereby compel us to take a closer look at them. Despite higher levels of literacy and social development, issues of social exclusion and resultant vulnerabilities pose difficult questions for the future of the state. So, in order that no one is left behind, additional livelihood opportunities should be offered to women while simultaneously reducing the care burden by extending the working hours of the Anganwadi centers and daycare homes for the elderly. Furthermore, there should be a focus on skill upgradation of women and the SC/ST unskilled workers so as to engage them in climate resilient agricultural work and natural resources protection under the Manrega scheme. Um, the last one, which I would just like to discuss, is the promoting knowledge, innovation, and technology. So these methods, these technologies are vital in addressing the sustainable development and climate change challenges that are present today. This is particularly so when a society gears up to cope up and recover from a disaster. So the Kerala floods illustrated the potential of information technology in both rescue and relief operations. Knowledge generation and dissemination also plays a crucial role in disaster preparedness and planning. Two major problems that were identified in early warning communication to last mile were warning were not understood and warnings were ignored. So dissemination of risk information along with citizens awareness of such warnings and their implications need to be enhanced. Once again, the energy and the willingness of the youth across social categories to engage in recovery process needs to be utilized for such dissemination, which will make it more effective with the use of modern technologies and social media. Uh, yep. Thank you. I hope this was a good session for each and every single one to understand. And this entire PDNA policy was actually a first, which was done in the entire country, and which can be replicated to different states, different disasters in the country as well. So as to understand what are the requirements for each and every single sector of the society. Yep.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
A growing multi-hazard environment to which millions of people in the world are exposed highlights the importance of making that the affected population is increasingly better prepared. And urbanization and industrialization, population expansion, environmental degradation, climate change, construction, development in high-risk zone, changing demographics and socio-economic conditions further increase the vulnerability of India to disaster. One of the highly disaster vulnerable countries has always been on its toe to confront the challenges posed by the number of disasters. Pranav sir of Kerala flood 2018 and takeaways from the case studies. Sir, we will take two questions raised by the participants. So first question is, what are the impact of land use and land cover changes in the Western Ghat region on risk and vulnerability of various hazard disaster? What are the knowledge gaps, sir?
Um, I'll definitely look into this topic and then maybe I can give you a better answer for this. I am not really prepared for this because I'm still reading about the Western Ghats. So maybe I can take their name and email IDs and then I can reply to them.
Even in the Q&A window chat, sir, you can answer from that
Definitely.
through message. Okay, sir. And the second question that I would like to answer, one of the participants raised a question from where the cyclone related data is available for research purpose. Get MD, NDMA has running NCRMP project on it. So you can also get the data from these institutes. Would you like to add on some points, sir?
I think so. These are the only good nodal agencies from where we can get the data. Also, a good point would be from the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority only, which would be issuing any um, forecast for the same.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sir. Now with this, moving to second presentation, we have with us Mr. Anil Kathat, YP NIDM. He is postgraduate in geology with over 8.5 years of experience in the field of landslide hazard management and disaster management. Prior to join NIDM, he has worked with some of the prestigious organizations like UNDP, NIUA, and CRRI, CSIR. He penned 20 research papers on various aspects of landslide hazard mitigation and management, inter alia contributed in drafting the engineering guidelines on landslide mitigation measures Indian roads. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Arjit. I'm audible? Okay, thank you. I hope my PPT is also with. Dr.
Uploading,
Arjit,
sir. It's uploading.
okay.
Now it's clear, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning to all of you. And I will be discussing landslide issues and their management. But before going to my topic, it is my duty to remind you all that though we are slowly resuming our basic routine activities with different phases of lockdown, and since there is no vaccine, no drug to counter COVID-19, still follow certain precautionary preventive measures. As precaution is better than cure, we have to follow this mantra and should adopt the precautionary measures for COVID-19 in our daily routine. So I request you all to use mask, wash your hand properly, use sanitizer whenever you are outdoor, avoid touching frequently your eyes, nose, mouth, and maintain social distancing, and also keep your surrounding area clean. So moving to my topic, landslide issues and their management. As you know, landslide is one of the major hydrogeological hazard that affects a large part of India, from mighty Himalayan range in north to the coastal areas of the south. India is the seventh largest country in the world in terms of area, but it constantly been knocked by landslides of varied magnitude throughout the history. According to Geological Survey of India, which is also the nodal agency for the landslide research and study in the country, 42 million square kilometer of our nation's land area, that is about 12.6% of the total area, is vulnerable to landslides. And these vulnerabilities are spread over 19 or 4 union territories. So as per available recorded data, history of landslide in India is way back to 18th century. Yet the devastating potential of landslide got attention of the nation after the episode of Alaknanda tragedy of 1970. That was in Garhwal region of Uttarakhand state. That catastrophic event demonstrated its shattering impact right from its initiation point to the 100th kilometer of downstream. The flood that was generated due to that incident, due to collapse of a landslide dam lake, completely swept away hamlet in the valley that is known as Belakuchi hamlet, and apart from that hamlet, the flood also swept away around 30 buses and 13 bridges. The other event which turned the head of different field trading with our science towards the landslide was a Malpa landslide that was in year 1999, and that was in Pithoragarh district, again in the state of Uttarakhand. That whipped away the entire village of Malpa and killed more than 200 people. That nightmare scenario keep haunting the community and its surroundings now and there in our nation. In recent years, landslide have become a recurring phenomena in coastal states also. And the common element that cause slope failure in these coastal areas is water. Not only in these coastal areas, but also in Himalayan areas. The key element trigger move landslide is water, either in the form of continuous rainfall or floods, flash floods, cloud bursts every year, and especially during the monsoon season. That also it has gradually become the synonym to landslides. Our slopes are failing, whether you take examples of Kerala or Karnataka, as my previous speaker also highlighted the scenario of landslides in Kerala in recent years. And again, you can also recall that Malin and tragedy, Malin landslide near in Pune in year 2014, that was triggered by unprecedented precipitation that whipped away the whole village of Malin and killed more than 150 people. So landslide was frequent in Himalayan states, but now coastal regions are also feeling the heat of this hydrogeological hazard. So the reason of slope instability, there are many factors that contribute to the instability of slopes. This can be the high relief, drainage, bed rock, vegetation, as well as climate change, other disasters like earthquake, floods, flash floods, and as well as anthropogenic activities. The conditions or governing factors of land can be classified into inherent of the particular area and external. External factors condition that it can be include like precipitation, heavy precipitation, vibration that is induced by earthquake or by anthropogenic activities like blasting, explosion, loading or unloading of slope, and so on. Construction activities in the proper understanding of the slope dynamics have augmented the number of the landslide incidents in the country. According to the research publication of UK's universities 2018, 20% of the landslide that occurred in India are as a consequence of our anthropogenic activities. So we are responsible of maximum numbers of human activities are responsible for maximum numbers of landslides due to our unplanned planning. Landslide are also multifaceted phenomena having a broad spectrum of magnitude types that can be triggered by other disasters like I told, earthquakes, unprecedented precipitation, wildfires, cyclone, floods, glacial lake outbursts, floods, cloudbursts, and as well as anthropogenic activities like unregulated cutting of hillsides, haphazard construction of buildings and roads on fragile slopes, mining, and that's all. Landslide, apart from being triggered by other disaster landslide, are also responsible for inducing hazards like flash flood, like about the case in Alameda tragedy of 1970, and tsunami, collapse of landslide dam lake can generate devastation flash floods. Similarly, episodes of submarine landslide are enough capable of producing huge tsunamis in coastal areas that can have potential on to treat community, their environment, coastal ecosystem. You can, for example, the Indonesian tsunami that was triggered by landslide in year 2018. Further, the climate change, that is the hot topic of the era, and its adverse impact on temperature and precipitation will further flame the portent of landslide disaster and will be constantly challenging our strategies of landslide risk reduction and resilience. The change in frequency and intensity of rainfall at each level will amplify the magnitude, the number of landslide incidents, and thus more human settlements. Our infrastructure, our structure will be exposed to its destructive impacts. There are many landslide indicators which can be utilized to know which area is landslide prone. Is there any activity of landslide? Is there any probability of slope to fail in future? Simple observation and inspection of these potential indicators can assist in assessing the potential landslide hazard. It is also important to note that some of the features can also be due to other causes other than landslides. Some of the potential indicators you can see in the figure. There are saturated grounds or seeps in area that are not typically wet, or either new cracks or scarps, unusual bulge in the ground, roads, pavement, sticking doors, windows, visible open space indicating jams and frames out of plumb, soil away from foundation, tilting or cracking of concrete floor, foundation, tilting trees, broken water lines, and all these are the potential indicator that show that there is some movement in the slope. And when you talk about the impacts of landslide, it can be, you can categorize it as direct or indirect impact. Direct impacts are those first order consequences which occur during and immediately after an event of landslide, and such as death, the damage caused by landslides. And when you talk about the indirect effects, it may be emerged after the landslide event and may be more or less to attribute directly to landslide. This is like psychosocial impact and evacuation, living, evacuating your home areas in which you are living for so many years. Similar effects maybe also a class effect of landslide can also be classified as tangible and intangible. Tangible, that those are which it is possible to assign reasonable, reliable monetary values, such as replacement of damaged property. And when intangible, it cannot be satisfactorily assessed in monetary terms. For example, loss of human lives has proved difficult to assess the financially. There are certain concerns related to landslides, such as physical injuries, loss of human lives, property, our structures, infrastructure damage, economic losses, loss to our agriculture, land, our loss to our forest cover. Landslides have also impact on variety of resources like roads, highways, water supplies, sewage disposal system, forests, dams, reservoir, and so on. To show how much indirect losses can be occurred by landslide incidents, I will discuss a case history of Kalyasur landslide. Kalyasur landslide is one of the notorious landslide that was first initiated in year 2020 at the kilometer 147 on National Highway 58 in Uttarakhand, and it is still threatening community and the highway. When I was working with Central Road Research Institute, we carried out a study to estimate the cost of indirect landslide losses related to highway closure during between September and October 2010. In 2010, as you see in the figure, due to closure of this National Highway 58 at this point at kilometer 147, travelers were forced to travel through bypass roads. You can see the map. And we calculate the total tutoring cost for 45 days. And when we calculate the total tutoring cost for 45 days, it was around 2.4 billion rupees for 45 days only. This indirect cost of duty is still a low estimate, as it does not include other business consequences of loss of access to local resources and associated losses of business at local shops, restaurants, tourists, and hotels. This, whatever losses we have calculated, it was only for the detouring for 45 days. The actual loss the actual loss of landslide are still a topic of debate, as when in the case of in case of secondary hazard after primary hazard of earthquake and floods, landslide are not given their due in number of deaths, in damaging properties, as well as landslide in secondary disaster also hamper the rescue and response operations. The severity of the landslide in the country, our government has taken a number of initiatives. Like the first one is of a high power committee that was established in 1999, and it was focusing on the clutch to learn from past disaster in India and outside the country. This high power committee was constituted in 1999, and endeavor was to provide a new conceptual framework to minimize the impact of disaster. And the committee exhorted focusing on preparedness for prevention, reduction in addition to mitigation of disaster. So this disaster management was basically a relief-centric approach. In this high power committee, they produced report in 2001, and in that report, landslide was placed under the geological related disaster group. And the committee highlighted that landslide are predictable and adverse impact of the landslide can be minimized or even averted with proper and systematic studies. In the report, priorities were given to landslide hazard identification, improved landslide mapping, assessment to identify the exiting and potential slow failures, how we are using our land use patterns, what are the control measures, and the development of reliable risk assessment, besides sensitizing the local community about the threats of landslides and the possible solution to them in their respective areas. High power committee also emphasized to encourage research on prediction and forecasting of landslide, especially for old ones that have potential for reactivation, and for those occurring in the areas known to be hazardous. The second intervention was the guidelines on management of landslide and snow avalanche that was devised by National Disaster Management Authority, and apprehending the need of enormous destructive potential of the landslides and the need of reducing the resultant losses of lives and economy. This guidelines was formulated by National Disaster Management Authority in year 2009. The guideline incorporated time-bound regulatory and non-regulatory framework to institutionalize the landslide hazard mitigation efforts, apart from enhancing the capacity of society to take appropriate measures to avoid, to reduce the risk and the cost associated with the landslides. To address the challenges against the landslide risk reduction and resilience, 9 major areas were acknowledged for systematic, synchronized, and effective management of landslide hazard. The area which were focused in the guidelines of landslide and snow avalanche management. The first one was a landslide hazard vulnerability and risk assessment. It was to identify hazard, its vulnerability, and risk assessment. Very and utmost step towards mitigating the adverse impact of any hazard. Thus, these guidelines highlighted the need of creating landslide inventory database, assessing the vulnerability of different areas in the country for landslides, and resources that are at the risk for appropriate planning and decision making. The second component was as multi-hazard conceptualization. Landslide can occur as a secondary product of other disaster like I already mentioned, earthquake, floods, and so on. And apart from initiated by other disaster, landslides are also capable of inducing several disasters like flash floods. So there is a need for a holistic multi-hazard approach for landslide risk reduction and resilience. The third component was landslide remediation practices. This emphasis was given for fostering efficiency remediation and mitigation technology in addition to landslide monitoring, developing early warning system aiming for pace setter example to build the confidence of the landslide risk reduction and resilience among the affected communities. Other component of the guideline was research and development, monitoring, and early warning. Landslides are among those hazards that are predictable, as was mentioned by the High Power Committee report in 2001, and controllable provided active scientific research is carried out, understanding the mechanism, triggering factors of landslide, their investigation, proper instrumentation, real-time monitoring, early warning system, and multi-hazard approach for assessing the potential of other hazards in activating and inducing landslides. Other component of the guideline was knowledge, network, and management. The guidelines quoted digital and updated information database on hazard, associated loss assessment, dissemination of technical information, and maps as an essential components for managing landslide disasters. Also, the guidelines exhorted on capacity building and training, enhancing the capacity of stakeholder as well as local community. Further, the methodology of details and specific landslide risk assessment, and so on have to be standardized, and course of practice related to landslide should be suitably modified as per the current scenarios. Other component was to public awareness and education to enhance the public awareness apropos of landslides in their particular areas. Local communities of landslide prone areas are worst affected in case of any disastrous landslides. So there is utmost important to create awareness among them about all the facets of landslides and the measure to avoid, to minimize the impact of the adverse impact of landslides. Thus, the awareness can be created through education, through various face-to-face training programs, through posters highlighting the do's and don'ts related to landslides, or through audiovisual areas, as well as media campaign for landslide risk reduction and resilience. These guidelines also highlighted multi-stakeholder means it will include scientific researchers, engineers, local disaster managers, national disaster response force, state disaster response force that are dealing with disaster coordination of emergency preparedness, rescue, relief, and rehabilitation of affected communities. In past experience, it has been pointed out that there is lack of coordination among line departments. So the guidelines emphasized on better coordination, better communication between line departments for landslide risk reduction and resilience. Other component was regulation and enforcement. The guideline highlighted setting up a techno-legal mechanism for assessing landslide hazard and reducing its impacts on the vulnerable areas and as well as on communities, with provision for enforcing adherence that are needed to be implemented. for landslide risk reduction. In year 2019, to address all the odd challenges of landslides at national level as well as at local level, National Disaster Management Authority formulated a strategic document that also accomplished the fifth target of Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. That was substantially increase the number of countries with national and local disaster risk reduction strategies by 2020. So this national risk management strategies laid recommendation on all the major components of landslide disaster risk reduction and management. And the components which were focused are landslide, hazard mapping, monitoring, early warning system, awareness generation program, capacity building and training, mountain zone regulation, policies, mitigation of landslides, and creation of special purpose vehicle for landslide management. A number of recommendations were laid by the strategic document that was formulated in 2019, like as most of the landslide hazard donation maps available are at small scale, at the scale of 1:50,000. So they have limited efficacy in development activities. So need was felt to produce maps at macro scale and meso scale using advanced scientific state-of-art tools such as unmanned aerial vehicle, terrestrial laser scanner, and very high resolution Earth observation data. That strategy also emphasized to foster the R&D for development of early warning system based on rainfall threshold, as the water is one of the critical element that trigger the landslide, as well as earthquake-induced landslide modeling and wireless sensor network-based instrumentation. It also advocated to promote the culture of awareness generation and preparedness by involving and educating the local communities, especially the youth, about the landslide management, how they can manage the landslides impacts in their particular areas. Also, this strategy document advocated to identify the target group from national level to grassroots level and enhancing their capacity for landslide risk reduction through training programs, having upgraded and simplified content with new technological inputs. Strategic document also highlighted to review and revise existing codes, standards, guidelines for landslide management, and to update and enforce enforcement of building regulation and bylaws by every state's governments and local bodies. It was also mentioned that to identify most problematic landslide site and also to identify suitable control measures for that site-specific landslide stabilization and mitigation of a problematic landslide, to set up pace setter example so that other can also learn from that pace setter example. As was mentioned in HBC High Power Committee report in 2001, National Strategy on Landslide also advocated to establish a national level center dedicated only for landslide research and management. So these were the interventions that were carried by our government, and a number of initiatives were taken based on these national interventions, like Geological Survey of India under the Ministry of Mines, that is associated with the studies of landslides since 1880, and also it was declared nodal agencies for undertaking research and development in the field of landslide management in year 2004. Also, the Technical Advisory Committee was established under the Gazette of India notification that was released in 2012 for landslide mitigation and management to foster landslide-related research and development in the field of monitoring, mapping, and capacity enhancement. And recently, in 2014, Geological Survey of India launched National Landslide Susceptibility Mapping program to cover landslide-prone areas of the country and to create a dynamic national landslide susceptibility geodatabase based on a seamless landslide susceptibility map and a nationwide database on GIS-based landslide GIS-based landslide inventory. The other achievement of ASI include collaboration with national and international organization institutes for development of science and technology in purpose of mapping hazard risk assessment, instrumentation, and as well as early warning system. Apart from the Bureau of Indian Standard published a number of course guidelines related to different facets of landslides, such as landslide hazard, zonation mapping, design, and construction of various retaining walls, landslide control, selection of buildings, selection of materials for residential building in landslide prone areas, and national building codes. Apart from this BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, Indian Road Congress, IRC, helped the stakeholders concerning landslides especially on highways and roads, through their guidelines on landslide mitigation, prevention, and corrections. Also, Building Material and Technology Promotion Council under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs come up with this third edition of Vulnerability Atlas of India in 2019 that provide state-wise hazard map and district-wise damage risk tables for whole country. Institutes, organizations can utilize use given information and data in developing methodologies for mitigation and prevention. Disaster management has also taken a number of steps for landslide risk reduction and resilience. In pursuance of mandate of Disaster Management Act 2005, for capacity enhancement, National Institute of Disaster Management (NIDM) developed training module on comprehensive landslide risk management, face-to-face as well as online training program on landslide risk reduction and resilience. Also, NIDM was a part of Indo-Japanese Disaster Risk Reduction 2011-2014 that was conferred by International Consortium of Landslide (ICL), and in November 2019, NIDM organized International Conference on Landslide Risk Reduction and Resilience. Apart from this, NIDM also come up with a document, landslide preparedness guidelines for safety of buildings on slopes, that has been developed to provide a basic idea about landslides, their triggering factors, and mitigation measures to decrease landslide hazards and risks. Consists of various avoidance, prevention, mitigation practice that can be followed easily and focus on generalized idea of planning and site selection to construct houses in landslide-prone area and to minimize the vulnerability towards landslide. It's given in that document. Apart from this landslide preparedness guidelines, NIDM has also formulated directive of institutions and resource persons that are working in the field of landslide management in country, as well as a selected annotated bibliography and bibliography on landslide in India was formulated with aim, and the aim of that bibliography was to systematically organize a source of previous literature and research work on landslide for interested researchers for their future research, and it can also help. It can also help those who have any interest in knowing about the landslides publication for any particular area in the country. Before I conclude, I will conclude by saying that we, the human, have always exploited the nature to fulfill our insatiable hunger for our growth, for our development, that without considering the health status of our slope. And it is our own activities that are fabricating the situation for landslide, for slow failure. So we need to synchronize our activities with the attributes of slopes we are living in. We need to make disaster risk reduction a part of our regular curriculum at school or as well as at university level. Also, we need to enhance the capacity of our local communities that are first victims of any landslide, as well as our Honorable Prime Minister's 10-point agenda or disaster risk reduction highlighted the need to build on local capacity and initiatives. And people should also be trained when and how they should respond to minimize the risk of disaster. Or focus should be on developing a culture of safety and resilience. Some of the takeaway that can be taken from the national intervention on landslide risk reduction and resilience are: number one, to establish a national level center that will be dedicated only for landslide research studies and management. This point was highlighted in High Power Committee report of 2001, then again in national guidelines on landslide management in 2009, and latest currently in national landslide risk management strategies of 2019. Other point is to be consider landslide risk in our every development projects. We have to enhance the coordination between line departments. Other point is that we can set an example of land management. We have to develop a robust early warning system, and most important, we need to enhance the capacity of our local communities that will help us in reducing the risk of landslides in their respective areas. With this, thank you very much. And over to you, Dr. Harjeet.
Thank you very much. Our participants, as sir highlighted that landslides are multifaceted phenomena having a broad spectrum of magnitude and types that can be triggered by other disasters such as earthquake, unprecedented rainfall, wildfire, cyclone, flood, glacial lake outburst, cloudburst, and anthropogenic activities. Landslides are also responsible for including hazard like flash floods and tsunami. Collapse of landslide damaged lake can generate a devastating flash flood. Similarly, of submarine landslides are capable of producing huge tsunami in coastal areas that can be potential threat to community and coastal ecosystem. Now moving to questions. Sir, due to time constraint, I will ask only one question. Then the point raised is that we need landslide mapping at large scale. Then what is the purpose of mapping at 1:5,000 scale? Why we not prepared maps on large scale?
Is it 1:5,000? 1:5.
50,000.
1:5,000 is.
Okay.
So, okay, the mapping on a small scale that was done in scale of 1:50,000 was carried out to have an idea of vulnerable and susceptible zones of our country. The very purpose of those maps was to demarcate the areas that are vulnerable to landslide in the country, and it was not meant for a development purpose or for landslide investigation at a local level or a site-specific one. At that period, the purpose was different, and whenever you are going for mapping, the scale of mapping should be adapted based on the requirement. At that time, the requirement was for regional level, and if you are dealing with site-specific issue, then you definitely need a large-scale map. And when you are looking for planning at a regional level, then small scale map can fix the purpose. So during that time, the motive was to demarcate the landslide vulnerable areas. So for regional planning, that's why at that time the mapping was carried out on small scale of 1:50,000.
Once again, thank you very much, sir. Now I would like to call upon Mr. Raju Thapa, young professional NIDM, for his presentation. Mr. Thapa is currently working as a young professional in NIDM, Ministry of Home Affairs. Prior to this, he has worked as a research fellow in the Departments of Science and Technology and Board of Research in Nuclear Sciences, Department of Atomic Energy sponsor major project. Mr. Raju Thapa has spent more than 30 research publication and book chapters in some of the leading journals and the publisher of Elsevier, Taylor, Francis and Springer. He is an expertise in the field of remote GIS application, water resources, contamination, hydrogeology, groundwater potential mapping and landslide assessment.
Thank you, Dr. Harjeet Kaur. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, namaskar and good afternoon. So, first of all, I consider this as my duty and mandate to share a few words of awareness about the COVID. And we know that we should mention no carelessness until there is a cure. So we must wear our mask properly, wash our hands, avoid touching, and keep social distancing. So before I proceed to my main presentation, so I want to share a small story about, it is known as the angel voice. I think most of you who have heard of this. So it's about a woman on the municipal staff in a city in Chile, where she was urging resident over the radio to evacuate or to a higher ground during a tsunami situation. Although she tangled with fear and appreciation, her voice gave people the courage and helped save countless lives. She continually broadcasted to the very end before being engulfed by the tsunami. She never returned home. She has planned to be married in September 2016, but in all, 39 staff members were declared dead or missing. The 12-meter high this building was located in a risk area that was submerged by 2.4 meter of water also during the 1960 Chilean tsunami. This photo that you see is the disaster management headquarters of the Minimaki, this city, which is located in Chile, where the lady staff keep providing early warning about the impending disaster to the community until her own location engulfed and submerged by the gigantic tsunami. So she sacrificed her life to others. It was an act of bravery and heroism. She was a true hero and a selfless humanitarian. So as already highlighted by Dr. Harjeet Kaur also in her introductory marks, and also by Professor Surya Prakash, that we all know, like, there is a number and the severity of natural disaster is rising as the climate undergoes changes and as the world population continue to increase. This trend is also exerted by the population clustering in vulnerable areas, by the degradation of the environment, and by the expansion of the areas at risk due to climate change. And as per the report of the Center for Research on the Epidemiology of the Disaster, better known as CREED, and the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, since 1995, flood has accounted for more than 47% of all weather-related disaster. And as my earlier speaker, Dhawan sir, has also wonderfully given the presentations about the detailed case study that he has done. So this disaster, this report is taken from EMDAT, and also when we consider the top 10 countries affecting by weather-related disaster from 1995 to 2015, India position is second after China with about 805 million affected people. So. And also, if you see the number of deaths per income group, you will see that the low income group, they are mostly affected by, they are the one who get mostly affected because of the low income, they are forced to live in an area that are more prone to hazards. And also, if you see the male and women and children comparison, morbidity comparison, you will see that women and children are far more vulnerable to disaster, getting exposed to disaster compared to men. So, keeping all these things, there was, if you consider the the Paris Agreement. Let me show you the Paris Agreement, which was found about made, which was made with an aim to strengthen the scientific knowledge on climate, including research, scientific observation of the climate system, and early warning system in a manner that it will inform climate services and support decision making. Also, the importance of early warning system for global to local climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction strategies has been increasingly recognized during the past 15 years. So during this time, early warning system has progressively received attention within the framework of international treaties, conference, and action plans. So Paris Agreement is one of that. And also, if you see the Sustainable Development Goal, so out of the 17 Sustainable Goal, if you see the 13th goal of Sustainable Development Goal, it encourages to spread of early warning to reduce the climate change related hazards by strengthening the resistance and adaptability capability to climate related hazards, and by spreading the educations, improve educations or awareness raising and human and institutional capacity on climate change mitigation and adaptation also. And also the Sendai framework addresses the early warning through its recommendation to substantially increase the availability and access to multi-hazard early warning system and disaster risk information and assessment to people by the 2030. As mentioned by Dr. Harjeet Kaur, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji laid down 10-point mantras, where he highlighted several points such as investing in risk mapping globally, leveraging technology to enhance the efficiency of disaster risk management, and also to develop and involve more in social media so that they can be used as a effective tool. And recognize the potential of social media and develop applications for all aspects of disaster risk management. So early warning system are very complex and process which is aimed to reduce the impact of natural hazard by providing timely and relevant information in a very systematic way. So if you consider early warning system, why do we need early warning system? The first question is because early warning for disaster risk reduction is a very legitimate matter of public policy at the highest national level for the two main reasons. The first one clearly is public safety and the protection of human lives. And the second one is the protection of national resources, national resources like which are the productive assets like the infrastructure or the private property or the investment, which will ensure the long-term development and economic growth. So early warning system has limitations in terms of saving lives if they are not combined with people-centered network. So to be effective early warning system, it must be embedded in and it must be understandable by and relevant to the community which they serve. So warning will have little values unless they reach to the people that are at risk and who need to be trained to respond to appropriately when they receive those early warnings. So the end user should also must be trained to respond to the early warning that they receive. So if broadly, I will say there are 4 key elements for early warning system. So a complete and effective people-centered early warning system comprises 4 interrelated elements. So that is knowledge, the knowledge, risk knowledge, and monitoring and warning services, and response capacity, and dissemination and communication. So if you talk about risk knowledge, like risk arises from the combination of hazard and vulnerability at any particular location. So assessment of risk requires systematic collection and analysis of data, and it should consider the dynamic nature of hazard and vulnerability that arises from processes such as urbanization, rural land use changes, like Professor Surya Prakash in the initial opening address has highlighted the cutting down of mangrove forest, which has eventually leads to more exposure of the community that are residing in the coastal zone. So environmental degradation and climate change. So risk assessment and mapping it will help motivate people prioritize early warning system, and it needs and it will guide preparation for disaster prevention and responses. So if you talk about the warning services, warning and monitoring services, so warning services, they lie at the core of the system. Whenever we talk about early warning system, this is the first thing that comes to our mind, like the warning services and monitoring. There must be a sound and scientific basis for predicting and forecasting hazards, and a reliable forecasting and warning system that operates 24-hour a day, because disaster don't come with warning. So we must have a 24/7 monitoring system. And also the continuous monitoring of hazard parameters and precursors is essential to generate accurate warning in a very timely fashion. So monitoring, there are various techniques such as use of satellite imagery, and also the land-based radars, or the on-ground point of measurement such as automatic AWS weather stations. And also those collected data, they need to be processed in lab or in computer. So these can be these things must be, these things are in all come under monitoring and observations. So one more promising monitoring system is the that I would like to add, is the emerging practice of the social media. As social media, it gives us a numerous opportunity to explore, and it has a, since nowadays everybody is using social media, so it has a very tremendous potential also to reach multiple users at one time. So an example in such case is the iReact project that was initiated that is initiated in the Italy. And this app, what it does, it collects the data of disaster from the people only. Like it is a public source. So whatever people observe, they give the data. So they are able to accumulate large number of data. So this is also one of the technique that is gaining now momentum. And once the monitoring is done, the other important part that comes is dissemination and communication. See, warning must reach to those at risk. And this warning, this message, this must be clear, containing simple, useful information. And then it is very crucial to enable the proper response that will help the safeguard life and livelihood. If you see the history record, like most of the time, early warning system failure doesn't, like the failure of early warning system is not because of the systematic failure. It is because of the failure in the communication and dissemination. Because of the lag time in passing on the messages, or because of the not understanding the messages by the end user. So regional, national, and community level communication system must be pre-identified and approach authoritative voice like established. The use of multiple communication channels is also necessary to ensure as many people as possible are warned, to avoid failure of any one channel, and to reinforce the warning messages. There are various alerts like IMD. They, like Dr. Harjeet Kaur recently answered the query of one participant, like IMD release various early warnings, like for heavy rainfall, or even for cyclone, and even for thunderstorm and lightning. So IMD fish, they also release early message like warnings for fishermen, and also similarly inquires release warning for tsunami. So similarly, these early warnings or messages, they are being provided to the end user via email or via SMS, mobile apps, Damini. I hope you have heard of Damini and all those apps. Also media play a very important role, whether it will be the print media or the electronic media and the social media, which has been recently taking more initiatives. And sorry, and also the community, like Anil sir, my earlier speaker Anil sir also highlighted this point about the involvement of the community. So community also has a very important role to play in this. So and the last component is the response capacity. Like it is essential that communities understand their risk, and also they respect the warning services and know how to react. See, education and preparedness program play a very key role. It is also essential that disaster management plan are in place, well practiced and tested. So mock drills time to time can be very effective. And the community should be well informed on options for safe behavior, like available escape routes, and how best to avoid damages and loss to property. Like a response force such as NDRF and military, paramilitary, NGOs, community, ham radios, like everybody has a very vital role to play in response activity. So EWS has to be understood as the assemble of different components to inform the community in a timely manner about imminent threats. For example, the our earlier speaker said the flood early warning system. It uses different data's inputs such as like satellite imagery, radar, like precipitation monitoring from floods, model calculations, and to elaborate the forecast and flood hazard map. These maps are later used to classify like imminent flood threats into 4 danger zones, like sir mentioned. So inhabitants are then made aware of the impending threats through media or other news, and are in turn encouraged to seek further information on the dedicated websites. Or like IMD has a dedicated website to where you can find the various informations about they release a warning every 3 hours also now. So they have dedicated websites where you can refer and have a up-to-date informations. These are some of the, just for your information, some of the central agencies that have been designated for natural hazard specific early warning, like cyclone, IMD. So you can have different flood, different hazards and are dealt by different agencies for early warning. So to highlight, there are a range of overarching issues that should be taken into account when designing and maintaining effective early warning system. So effective governance and institutional arrangement. So well-developed governments and institutional arrangements support the successful development and the sustainability also of sound early warning system. They are the fundamentals upon which the previously outlined 4 elements that I just discussed of early warning are built and strengthened and maintained. So good governance is encouraged by robust legal and regulatory framework. Similarly, and one more thing is that vertical and horizontal communications and coordination between early warning stakeholders should also be established. It is very essential to have a both vertical and horizontal communication. Sorry. So, and the second point is the multi-hazard approach, where possible early warning systems should link all hazard-based system. Rather than focusing on each hazard, a multi-hazard approach is found to be more effective. So economic, and also multi-hazard early warning will also be activated more often than a single hazard warning system, and therefore it should provide better functionality and reliability of dangerous high intensity event such as tsunami that occur frequently. So multi-hazard system also helps in public better understand the range of risk they face and reinforce desired preparedness action and warning response behavior. And the involvement of local communities. This is very important point that was also highlighted by our earlier speaker, Anil Khatet sir. See, people-centered early warning system rely on the direct participation of those most likely to be exposed to hazard. So we always say that community are the first responder. So without the involvement of local communities and authorities at risk, government and institutional interpretation and response to hazard like events are likely to be inadequate. So they need to get up, they need to engage themselves. And a local bottom-up approach to early warning with the active participation of local communities like the Apada Mitra is also coming up. It will enable a multi-dimensional response to problems and need. In this way, local communities, civic groups, or the traditional structure can contribute to the reduction of vulnerability and to strengthen of the local capabilities. And one more important issue is the consideration of the gender perspective. Like I have mentioned in the earlier slide, that women and children are much more prone to or much more exposed to disasters. So in developing early warning system, it is essential to recognize that different groups have different vulnerabilities according to culture or gender or other characteristics that influences their capacity to affect or to prepare for the disaster. So in addition, the elderly and the disabled and the socio-economic disadvantaged one are often most vulnerable. And so we must consider to involve them also, like Pranav sir mentioned, leaving no one behind. That should be our prime motto. So information, institutional arrangement, and warning communication system should be tailored to meet the needs of every group in every vulnerable community. And the last thing I would like to highlight is the key actors. So whose roles is important? Who are the actors? So developing and implementing an effective early warning system, it requires the contribution and coordination of a diverse range of individuals and groups. The following list provide a very shortly a brief explanation of the type of organizations and groups that should be involved in early warning system and their functions and responsibilities. The first one is, of course, the community, like particularly those most vulnerable and fundamental to people-centered early warning system. They should be very actively involved in all aspects of the establishment and operation of early warning system. And they must be aware of the hazards and potential impacts to which they are exposed. And like the timely drills, that is most that also it also adds to their it also helps in building the resilience of the community. And also one more important fact is like the frequent and unlike those early warning that are that does not fulfill the exact events, such as false warning. Rather, I'm sorry, the false warning, if there are frequent false warning, then what will happen, that will gradually decrease the reliability, or you can say the faith of the community on the warning system. So the organizations or the agencies that are issuing warning, they should also be very take this very seriously about issuing the warning, because building faith of the community to this warning that they issue, it also takes time, and it will also come through various drilling process or mock drills. And the local government and the state government, like communities and individuals, they also play a very important role. Similarly, the central government, they are responsible for high level policies and framework that facilitate the early warning, and for the technical system that predict and issue national hazard warning. So central government, they should interact with like the states or the regional or the districts and agencies to strengthen early warning capabilities and ensure that warning and related response are directed towards the most valuable, vulnerable populations. So Dr. Harjit, am I audible? Because I am seeing some comments. They are saying that I am not audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Please continue, sir.
Okay. So I was highlighting that similarly, like the non-governmental organizations, also the private sector, also they play a very important role, and also the science and academic community. The different science we need with day-to-day advancement in the disaster and the day-to-day change in climate changing, everything is changing. So we need to come up with advanced science and technology, and the research is one sector which has always tremendously contributed in developing early warning system, and which will also have a very important role to play in future also. So these are some of the key factors. So I have tried to highlight the basics of early warning system with this slide. So with these words, I would like to end my slide because of the time also. So thank you very much, Dr. Harjit. And if there are some questions, I will be happy to take those questions, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir, to enlighten our participant on the topic of early warning and importance of it in disaster management. Sir, we have received a good response in form of a question, so we will take two questions. So first question is, in India, every year there are several disasters resulting in loss of life and property. What needs to be done to reduce this loss of life and properties and strengthen our warning system?
Yes, ma'am, am I audible? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the question. So, see, ma'am, to completely stop any disaster, it's not possible. But however, we can always continuously try to minimize the effect of the hazard. So now, for example, the IMD, it is doing an excellent work in cyclone prediction and cyclone early warning. So, which has been internationally recognized also. But yet the implementation of early warning system can be made more efficient and fundamental, considering the, like, if we anticipate following process, like few points like I have mentioned earlier also, and this was also I think highlighted by UNDP also, that the institutional and the regulatory arrangement, like we have to focus on this first, like to ensure that a smooth and early warning process and to develop capacity among stakeholders. And also, like I just mentioned, the technological solution, like we have to upgrade our monitoring system, we have to upgrade our forecasting system, and also the warning infrastructure. Like the warning that we issue, it should not take much time to reach to the end user, and we always have to minimize this time as much as possible with our constant efforts and constant innovation. And also community-based solution, like I have also earlier also mentioned, like community, we have to involve community. Without their involvement, it is not possible to have a effective early warning system, and we have to empower them also. To involve them, we have to empower them. So to empower community at risk and to prompt an effective response to warning. And also, apart from government, we have to consider the important role that the private sector play. So we have to engage the private sector also. So we need the engagement of private sectors to develop and manage the early warning system at low cost, and with the engagement of like sectorial professionals, like such as in disaster response, such as ham radios. They play a very important role. The NGOs, they come up with food, they come up with shelter. The medicals, all these, they have to they need to have a mock drills prior to that. So also the international cooperations and data sharing. Data sharing is one of the most important part in preparing our early warning system. So because we know that the past is the key to the future, so we have to learn from our past history. So data, we have to analyze our data. So what went wrong? Where did we went wrong? Like our earlier speaker, Dhawan sir, also highlighted where we went wrong. So we have to understand where we went wrong. We have to increase our collaboration, not only within the country, but internationally also. Like IMD is sharing his data with his neighbors. Similarly, in such similar way, we have to increase our international cooperation also. Thank you, ma'am. I think that will serve the.
Thank you very much, sir. So next question is, what do you think about the mobile technology and disaster management?
Ma'am, it's a good question. So like I mentioned earlier also, like mobile is now it is a new potential. It is giving us a new, you can say, a new dimension for disaster risk reduction. There are various apps that are coming up. See, there are dedicated websites for getting information. But now, since most of people, like I will still say there are some part of the people that cannot afford or that are not using smartphones. But there is a large group of people that are doing that. So we can make use of this facility, smartphones, and we can come up with smart apps, such as, like, there is one app by TN Smart Tamil Nadu, and there are apps like Arogya Setu. I think most of us have already heard of that. So all these are an example where social media has done a tremendous job in spreading awareness and also early warning. And also there are various apps like iSmart I mentioned, that are being coming up. And also one thing that came up as an, I would like to share with you, that came up as an takeaway point from one of our earlier webinar that we conducted on I think 8th of September was that because of multiple apps coming up that on the field of disaster management, so it is very hard for one person to install so many apps. So there is a need also to come up with a one-stop solution. So that one-stop solution, one app which will give you information about various early warnings, or what you should do, do's and don'ts, and several others. Because when disaster occur, in most of the like situations, there is no current, or there is shortage of current, and sometimes shortage of network also. So we have to come up with one-stop solution where I think social media has a very important scope and potential. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir. Hope this answer will satisfy the participants' query. With that, we have come to end of our technical session. Now I would request Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMR Division, NIDM, for concluding remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Harjeet. I think it was a very good session. Am I audible? Okay. It was a very good session, learning from the three young speakers who are professionals in disaster management. And they have shared their experiences about the information and the technologies available for disaster risk reduction in coastal areas. I have come across a few more questions which I have seen, and amongst our participants, I could find very reputed persons like Dr. V.S. Prakash, who has been director for Karnataka State Natural Disaster Monitoring Center, one of the leaders, motivators, and mentors in disaster risk reduction, has also posed some questions to our experts. I consider he's much more experienced than the young experts we had. But still, I would like to address some of these questions that no doubt despite all our technology, early warning, and informations available, we need to actually work on our land use policies also and legal provisions related to that. Whatever works we do, actually several experts have conflicting statements, and they need to be addressed properly. So those things we are looking into. And besides that, there was a question from CWPRS. Someone from CWPRS has raised about the instruments and technologies for landslide monitoring and mapping. Lot of good technologies nowadays are available. Instrumentation on landslide actually started way back. I think it was a question from Dr. M. Salvaval from CWPRS. We have surveying techniques, for example, electronic distance meters, theodolites in the olden times. Currently, we are having targetless survey instruments called automatic target recognition systems. We have slope stability radars, we have inclinometers, we have extensometers, we have tilt meters, we have settlement gauges. So number of ways we are trying to monitor landslides on ground and off ground through remote sensing techniques, using even SAR interferometry and INSAR techniques. So there are a number of such methods available, and people are also using regional early warning system using meteorological equipments also, automated weather stations as well. So number of ways it has been tried. However, I would appreciate and acknowledge the effort made by our speakers who had tried to present their views on this theme. And I congratulate them for making very good, in fact, I would say excellent presentations and the information for all the participants. And I also thank the participants for raising questions and motivating the speakers to answer their questions. So number of things besides, as my colleagues have also said, the construction, development and land use regulation, we need to have some procedures, guidelines and other enforcements which will actually bring the results. So it is a collection and synergization and convergence of all stakeholders, policies, plans, and procedures, regulations, which will bring the effective results rather than all of them working in isolation in their own silos. So, no doubt, as Dr. V.S. Prakash has also mentioned in his comments, that there is a need for convergence of all stakeholders, all agencies to bring disaster risk reduction and resilience, and there should be a synergization of approach. And there was very good comment on convergence of even ecology and economics. People are running after economics and economic gains, but ecology also need to be taken care well as a wealth from given by the nature. So convergence of, no doubt, ecology and economics is also very much required. We all have to actually work together and find out solutions at the grassroots levels for our overall humanitarian, social, and environmental benefits and interests. With these words, I would say that you have made a good beginning. जैसे किसी शायर ने कहा है कि मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती है जो सफर इख्तियार करते हैं, ऐसे मुसाफिर का तो यारो रास्ते भी इंतजार करते हैं. So I congratulate these young professionals who had taken a beginning in this direction, and all the participants also, and wish you all the best. And thank you for giving me this opportunity for the concluding address. Thank you, Dr. Ajit.
Thank you very much, sir, to motivate us and answer a multiple question raised by our participants. And now it's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this webinar. I wish to express my sincere gratitude to Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, Executive Director NIDM, and Professor Gurmeet Singh, Vice Chancellor Pondicherry University, for his encouragement and support to coordinate this webinar. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation to our speakers, Mr. Pranav, Consultant Flood Monitoring Cell NIDM, Mr. Anil Kathat and Mr. Raju Thapa, Young Professional GMR Division NIDM, for their presence to enlighten the participants with their knowledge and experiences. I also express my deep sense of appreciation to Professor Surya Prakash, Head GMRD NIDM, who is the Program Chair of the webinar. And last but not least, I am thankful to our GMRD team, Mr. Anil Kathat, Mr. Raju Thapa, IT team, Shobhit and Balaji, for making this event successful. On behalf of NIDM, I wish all the participants a safe and healthy life. There is one announcement for the participant that feedback link is already shared in the chat box and in the Q&A window. So please fill the feedback form. And tomorrow we have a 3 days training program on telecommunication, radio and social media and disaster management at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So please join us tomorrow. Thank you very much.
One more announcement that participant, you don't need to worry about your attendance for certification. For certifications, your attendance is automatically recorded in Cisco WebEx platform. And we will be sharing the, in case you miss the attendance feedback link, we will be sharing that also through your email ID. And kindly bear with us, it might take 15 to 20 days as mentioned for the issuing of the certificates. And the minimum 60% attendance is required, and also you have to join through Cisco WebEx platform. So tomorrow, we hope GMR division that all of you will join us tomorrow for the wonderful session for 3 days training program that NIDM and Department of Telecommunication, Ministry of Telecommunication is organizing. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay healthy.